Radical means to get down to the roots. This is Rootwork, and I'm Tandasizwe Shimaringa. I am speaking today with Santi Elijah Holley. He is the author of the new book, An Amerikan Family, The Shakurs and the Nation They Created. An Amerikan Family is a history of the fight for Black liberation in the United States as experienced and shaped by the Shakurs. It is the story of hope and betrayal, addiction and murder, persecution and revolution. An Amerikan Family is not only family genealogy, it is the story of Black America's long struggle for racial justice and the nation's covert and repressive tactics to defeat that struggle. It is the story of a small but determined community taking extreme, unconventional, and often perilous measures in the quest for freedom. Welcome to the show today, Santi. Thank you so much for being on Rootwork.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Now, the book dropped on May 23rd. I haven't had a chance to go all through it and finish it yet. So we just going to make this do what it do, okay?
Sounds good.
I read your recent Writer's Digest interview where you were talking about the writing process of this book. And you stated in that interview you had a concern about a book dealing with Black liberation movement ideology as well as tactics. Your concern about it actually being published in the way you felt it should be published. You said your literary agent and your publisher were cool with that. My question would be why? What was the reason they gave you for that? Is it mainstream now to talk about ideology and actions that are pretty much diametrically opposed to the very society this publishing institution represents?
Wow, that's a great first question. We're going to get right into it. All right. Yeah, I don't know how mainstream this subject matter is. I mean, this has never been mainstream. I don't know if it ever will be mainstream. I think my publisher and my editor and everybody on the team had faith in my ability to tell the story honestly. And they trusted me to tell the story honestly, factually, to tell the story that needed to be told. And when I first sold the book idea a few years back now at this point, I told them at the beginning, how I wanted to do this book, my vision for the idea of the book, how I wanted to approach it, how I wanted to write it, and they were on board, from the beginning. So I think when I did turn in my manuscript draft, of the book, there wasn't really any surprises for them. I had a little bit of nervousness that there are certain passages, particularly the violent parts. There is a lot of violence, if you want to call it violence, or just rebellions that certain audiences might be shocked by, certain readers might be taken aback by, but that was the deal going in, saying this is the truth, this is what happened. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it or hide anything behind, the fairy tale version of what people want to see. And yeah, they believed in me, to their credit. They said, let's go, let's do it. And it ended up being just an act of faith on all of our parts, but I'm really happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely not mainstream what this family represents, especially in terms of what you label as violence. Many would label cop killers and bank robbers, whereas we know the political movement that many of these individuals belong to would call it bank expropriation and the correction of police officers, or retribution of police officers. Let me ask you this, along this same vein, I read the New York Times review of the book by Michael Jeffries. Now, he's a dean at Wellesley College, and I was actually surprised that his review was not a hit piece on the book.
I was happy about that. I was relieved. Yeah, I think it was a fair criticism. Some of the points he brought up were fair, coming from where he was coming from. I can see his criticisms, or even not criticisms, just a point that he raised. Um, but I don't think I would have done anything differently. Even after reading his review, I think it's mostly positive. Um, I was honored that he would take the time to be so thorough and considerate. And yeah, there are points where I just took a different tact than I think an academic would take in writing this book. But I do think that he recognized that, and he was fair and impartial with his review.
Right. And then, again, it goes back to what's beginning to look like mainstream, if not acceptance, allowance into mainstream discourse, such radical and militant and what I would call diametrically opposing forces that is represented by a family like the Shakurs.
Yeah, there's many different ways to approach this subject, and also what you can take away from it. I did want to, I wanted this book to open the conversation. I didn't want my opinion, my judgments to color every page. You know what I'm saying? I wanted, when you finish the book, I want you to think about what happened to these folks, to these fighters. Think about what they were up against, and then to really think, well, what would I have done differently? What could we have done differently today if that happened today? There's no real easy answers, and I think that's the takeaway I hope readers get, is that there aren't really easy answers, and I'm not trying to give you an easy answer. I'm just trying to lay it out how it was and what they're up against and what they did, or what they were alleged to have done, and let the readers sort of judge for themselves however they see fit.
Mm-hmm. Sekou Odinga figures prominently in the book. Understanding the ideology of Asada and Mutulu Shakur, as well as Sekou, which is still that of the Republic of New Africa, I'm wondering about the choice to call the Shakurs an American family as opposed to a New African one. Was the title of the book and calling them an American family, was that the choice of the publisher?
No, and I that was my choice. And it needs to be said that calling them, or the title of the book, An American Family, and America is with a K. I spell America with a K, which is in line with anti-imperialist, anti-racist organizations and groups and activists from the 60s on, have taken this tradition of spelling America with a K or with three Ks, and sort of highlighting America's racist history, and sort of connecting it to a lot of the beliefs of the KKK, and a lot of the tactics and a lot of the repression. And so in my calling it An American Family with a K, I'm connecting these struggles, these thoughts, these ideologies, but I'm also placing this family, the Shakur, not just the Shakur family, but these movements, these organizations and groups and fighters in an American context. These folks were born and not just literally physically birthed in, but this ideology was born in this country. And so they are a product of this country and its philosophies, its repression. They are a product of this country, and as much as this country, this nation, is a product of people who are freedom fighters. We laud, we make heroes of our freedom fighters, right? I mean, back to the beginning of the country, and this country is always celebrated people who fight for their freedom. That is just a part of this country. And so by calling the book An American Family rather than New African Family, which, yes, they would call themselves New Africans with a K, but they are a product of this country, right or wrong, just as much as this country is a product of people who are freedom fighters.
I want to talk about the final paragraph of your introduction to the book. Now, in your introduction, you speak of the temperature in the country when you began the research and writing of this book in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic, the uprisings against the murders of George Floyd and others. And you mentioned the references to the climates of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. The last sentence of your introduction reads, and I quote, "America still has a long way to go before it can honestly say it is granted its Black citizens equal protection under the law, or that Black Americans are afforded the same rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as white Americans. Until that day comes, and until Black people in this country have received justice for hundreds of years of persecution, America will not know peace. This is the nation the Shakurs created." Now, again, understanding what you just stated, I want you to help me out with that sentence, because I'm kind of feeling like that's more of the nation that white supremacy created. In other words, America is the nation that America created, as opposed to the nation that Assata, Mutulu, and Sekou have dedicated their lives to creating. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. That's a good point. But I don't think we can separate the climate, this country that white supremacy has created from the rebellions against that. The rebellions against white supremacy are every bit a part of the nation as white supremacy. And I also want to say that the idea of what a nation is, what a nation means. A nation can mean more than just a nation state. You know, a nation can be a collective people who all are united under common cause, whether it's race or ethnicity or just ideology. That can be a nation. And I feel like the Shakurs and people affiliated with them created a nation within a nation, which has been talked about, you know, in Black liberation thought for decades, of the nation within a nation is what we've created, or at least what white supremacy has created, is an effective oppressed nation within the nation. But that means that there is a nation. So I'm not stating that the Shakurs have created the climate for what we are seeing today, but they have contributed to uniting under a banner, a banner of Black liberation, of New African philosophy. And today, we see direct action, grassroots organizing that can be traced back to, mid 60s into the 70s. And that is a result of people who sort of left, who are disenfranchised, disillusioned with the sort of above ground civil rights integrationist movements, and wanted to sort of go more grassroots, more direct action, see that things needed to change, and taking direct action to make those changes. And I feel like those are the things, that's sort of a nation building. Even if it is a nation within a nation, it is still a community that is strengthened by people who have come together under a particular ideology and just a passion for the liberation of Black folks in America. So there's different ways of looking at a nation, but we are all sort of here together, and we're all sort of trying to figure out, our way forward. But I don't know if we're even close to that point yet, but we're still working on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're listening to Rootwork here on KPFK, and this is Tandasiziwe Shimaringa, and I'm speaking with Santi Elijah Holley. He's the author of An American Family, The Shakurs, and The Nation They Created. It is out now by Mariner Books. I see where Nikki Giovanni and Saul Williams, two of our brilliant artists, have commented on the book, and I understand your background as an artist, a DJ, and a fan of Tupac, another brilliant artist discussed in the book. What comments have you received from political activists, if any, on the book thus far?
Well, I mean, the book is, yeah, it's been out for just a couple of days now. So I've
Well, I
so
mean,
far,
in turn, I was trying to get a review copy and it was, like locked up behind Fort Knox, but I know somebody out there got a review copy, right?
yeah, I mean, most of the early review copies just went to periodicals, reviewers, publishing places just to get some early reviews. So right now, I mean, all the feedback I've been getting, for the most part, has just been from newspapers and magazines, such like that, reviewers, which has been positive. I did hear from so far the only family member, and also somebody who I would consider part of the Shakur family, even though she doesn't have the Shakur name, but Sister Yasmin Fula, who I spoke to, I was fortunate to speak with for this book. I was able to get her a copy of the book early on because she lives here in Los Angeles, and we meet up. And she read the book, and she's been very supportive. She's been very supportive from the beginning. She's been supportive, but since getting her a copy of the book, I know she's read it, and she's telling folks, they got to read it. She's been talking to other people in her network. So yeah, I'm excited to hear what everybody has to say. But right now it's it's pretty early, so I'm just looking forward to seeing what people have to say. And I'm sure that everyone's going to agree necessarily with the way I approach this story and this history. But I hope that folks at least recognize that it's honest. It came from a place of respect, and yeah. So we'll see once the book's out for a little while, and start to hear back from the people.
Yes, I know Yasmin Fula, an activist in her own right, of course, in Harlem, New York, formerly married to Sekou Odinga, member of the Black Panther Party, and the mother of, I believe it was Yaki Gaddafi.
Yaki Gaddafi from the Outlaws, Outlaw
Right.
Immortals, Tupac's group.
Right, Tupac's group, yes, who was also unfortunately taken from us too young.
And also, I'll say just real fast that Yasmin and Baba Sekou Odinga weren't married necessarily. They had a relationship together, which brought about Yafeu or Yaki Gaddafi, but no, they weren't married necessarily.
Right. Understood. Please let KPFK listeners know what is happening tonight, Thursday, May 25th.
Yeah, tonight I'm really excited to be doing the first official book launch, presenting the book, reading from it, answering questions, signing autographs, all that. That's going to be tonight, 7 p.m. at Skylight Books in Los Feliz in Los Angeles. Yeah, it's going to be at 7 o'clock. It's going to be a good turnout. I hope. I got some folks coming through who might be, some special surprises. Yeah, I was looking forward to presenting the book for the first time and talking about it, and continuing the conversation that that you and I are having. I want to continue that conversation and keep it going.
And that's 7 o'clock p.m. tonight at Skylight Books, which is 1818 North Vermont Avenue, if I am not mistaken, in Los Feliz, correct?
That's correct. I'm not sure about the address, but yeah, that sounds about right. It's on Vermont Avenue.
Right. I'm sure KPFK listeners, those who are not familiar with it, I'm sure they can find it. So Santi Elijah Holley, thank you so much for your time today, for sharing with our audience. As I said, I just got the book. I think I'm in chapter 5.5, 6. I'm trying to get through it. I can't promise I'll be there tonight, but you ain't heard the last of me. So it's all
okay. All right. Good.
So thank you again so much for your time, for coming through today on Rootwork.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.